This is Chuck Huber, the voice of Android 17. You're listening to Anime Seekers. You better be, or I'm coming for you. Dragon of the Darkness, Flame!
Jedi Squadron is a podcast run by the Anime Secrets website. Check us out at animesecrets.org for more anime, video game, tokusatsu, and now Star Wars content. Remember to follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts today.
Hello, new Padawans, and welcome to the Jedi Squadron podcast. Here, you will be taking lessons in the many pieces of the Star Wars universe, whether it be the movies, animated series, video games, comics, and etc. This is your training into becoming a Star Wars fan as part of the Jedi Squadron. May your training go well, and may the Force be with you, young Padawans.
What is going on, Star Wars Nation? This is the Jedi Squadron podcast presented by animesecrets.org. I am your host, Nathan Dessau.
And I'm Rizwan Merchant.
And today we are continuing our little review of Star Wars, The Acolyte. We are reviewing episode 5, which is called Night, which we've had to do 2 episodes in our back-to-back reviews, but this time we're able to kind of get stuff relatively on schedule. So, this is the most recent one to come out. For those who want the recaps of what's happened in the series up to now, just go out and check out our previous 2 podcasts on The Acolyte to get a general idea. But with all that being said, the best way to kind of sum up this episode is that we could probably say that like the first 4 episodes are like, if this series was like a roller coaster ride, the first 4 episodes is when you're going up the hill. This is where the drop starts because there's a lot of stuff that's going to be happening here. And yet, ironically enough, the plot is actually pretty simple. So most of this episode pretty much picks up immediately from where the previous one left off, where the masked Sith Lord, Mai's master, attacked the Jedi. And we open up here where, Mai sees her master killing a lot of the Jedi. Like, she kills all the unnamed Jedi, including that Keldor, which, by the way, I remember saying in the previous podcast that we saw a Keldor, and I was speculating that it might have been Plo Koon. Well, clearly it's not Plo Koon because that Keldor got killed. But also, apparently, I wasn't able to really tell the difference, but that Keldor was apparently female. I need to kind of look a bit more to see how you can tell the difference between a female Keldor and a male Keldor, because in some species it's kind of obvious. Like, it's pretty easy to tell the difference between a female and a male Twi'lek, but with other races, not so easy. So, but yeah, that's beside the point. So all 4 of the human unnamed Jedi get killed, and part of the reason that they get killed here, and this is kind of a big Easter egg, is that the mask that the Jedi is wearing is made out of a metal. No, not the Jedi. I'm sorry, the Sith is made out of a metal called cortosis. So kind of a bit of a funny Easter egg here. Cortosis, it actually was first established in the new canon in a novel that I actually reviewed previously on the podcast called A New Dawn. That was the prequel novel. Well, not the prequel. It was more of just an origin story for Kanan and Hera. I reviewed that in depth. It first appeared in the novel I, Jedi, which was a Legends novel in 1998. And to kind of cut a long story short, this is a metal with a very high energy absorption rate. So if a blaster bolt were to hit against it, the blaster bolt would dissipate. And because of its high energy absorption rate, if it hits the laser blade of a lightsaber, it can briefly short the lightsaber out. And I'm pretty sure that's how it was portrayed in Legends. Because truth be told, I never really read any Legends novels that depicted it that showed cortosis in the past, but according to what I saw when I was watching a recap from another YouTuber, and you guys know the YouTuber I'm talking about, Star Wars Explained. There's the obligatory reference. It has the ability to short out lightsabers, not for that specific purpose, but it's more of a metal that has the properties that could short out lightsabers. So yeah, most of the Jedi get killed. Mai gets into a fight with Jeki, who tries to arrest her, during which they get into kind of a fist fight. And in the middle of the fight, Soul makes a stand against the mysterious master, and they get into a stand with them. And in the midst of the fight, well, a bunch of things happen. Jeki gets killed in the fight, which I I was legitimately stunned when that happened. Like, I literally sent Rizwan a text message just saying, "No, not Jeki," because
Dude, that kind of annoyed me because I really didn't want her to die.
yeah,
We're gonna talk about that in a little bit. Continue on.
yeah, because I just thought, okay, I mean, those three unnamed human Jedi and the Keldor Jedi, yeah, they're probably gonna die, but there's no way they would kill Jeki. They made her such a likable character, and then the show just looks me in the eye and say, "You want to bet?" And sure enough, they did that. So, but yeah, in the midst of a struggle, the mask gets taken off, and uh, it's revealed. And this shouldn't be too much of a shocker, but for some people it was. It wasn't for me that much, but the the Dark Jedi who claims that you could call him Sith is Kamir, the guy who was been helping May, which I'll be honest, that wasn't too surprising. I mean, because he said the line "peace is a lie," which is the first part of the Sith code, and I didn't really watch the trailers that much, but I do know that his line was there, so that wasn't really a huge shock to me, which is why I kind of appreciate the Jeki death thing, because the Jeki's death was a much big shocker to me than seeing that Kamir is the Sith Lord here. Do you agree with that, Riz?
Yeah, I called Chimera as a Sith Lord like an episode ago. Maybe 2 episodes ago at this point. So I wasn't really surprised. I was like, okay. I called that. That's fine. But I didn't see Seki dying. Like,
Yeah.
the way this episode played out was much different than how I predicted it would play out. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I didn't expect us to go all Jar Jar R. Martin on the thing.
Yeah. But the best way, with him getting in a kind of a verbal fight with Soul, so first of all, it's very clear that Kamir knows the secrets that Soul is trying to keep. Like, it's been pretty clear throughout this series that Soul has been trying to keep a secret, obviously related to Brendock, and Kamir obviously knows, and he's actually able to taunt Soul with that a little bit, and Soul actually overpowers him, but then he gets talked out of killing Kamir by Osha. And while all that is happening, he also goes after May. May is able to free herself from some magnetic binders that Jeki applied to her, and all throughout this struggle. And an important thing to note about Kamir is that Kamir is identifying himself as a Sith, which it's I don't know. We could probably talk about this a little bit more. Like, a lot of people have kind of claimed that this is kind of a continuity error, because, as most people would remember in the Phantom Menace, Ki-Adi-Mundi, who, as we just established in one of the previous episodes, is a Jedi here. He said that the Sith have been extinct for a millennia, which I'm getting the feeling that they can still make sense of Ki-Adi-Mundi saying that line, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. But with that being said, Soul gets talked out of killing Osha, but then not Osha, Kamir. Kamir also reveals that he seeks to basically so it's pretty easy to explain with the whole thing where Kamir wants to use the Force his way without having to worry about the Jedi not, without having to worry about the Jedi getting in his way. Like, he basically wants to do whatever he wants, whenever he wants, and the Jedi just have to deal with it, which it's basically kind of a way of just saying, I want to engage in intolerant actions, and if you're intolerant of my intolerance, well, then really you're the intolerant one, which kind of funny how he has that mindset, considering the mindset of certain people who might actually have some certain feelings towards Star Wars, but I'm not going to talk about that here because, yeah, I think Riz and I got into a bit of too much of a passionate talk about people who tend to be overly critical in the previous podcast.
It was pretty spirited. I'll say we had a pretty spirited discussion on that last podcast.
Yeah. But and not only that, but Kamir also has to kill everyone now because people have seen his face. So he wants to, kill everybody, and he gets driven off. Although he doesn't die, and the episode is pretty clear that he doesn't die. Sol gets stunned by May, and May and Osha get taken away. And we have this big moment between Osha and May, where it's kind of a bitter reunion where the two get into kind of a verbal fight, but we're pretty much given Osha and May's point of view. May's point of view a bit more, where Osha is criticizing May for what she's done and how she's killed all these people, and then May is saying, well, I did what I had to do for our family, and talked about how, like, the Jedi have done all these terrible things, and they got what they deserved. Now, I kind of wish that there was a line here where May kind of says that she didn't start the fire, because I really wish that there was kind of more of a wrench thrown in the mystery, but it's still a pretty heated discussion where it's pretty much kind of a rerun of like everything that we saw in like their Origins episode, where May is criticizing Osha for, not being true to their roots as witches. And then Osha is all like, well, the Jedi were a better family to me than anybody else was. So this results in them getting into a fight because, they both have conflicting points of view. And in the end, May overpowers Osha, and she decides that she's going to switch sides. So she puts her clothes on Osha, and then she puts on Osha's clothes to disguise herself, which I'm sure is to like, kind of try to get to the bottom of like stuff with Sol, to try to figure out what Sol is hiding. And she goes and she meets with Sol. Basil joins them, Basil being the scout that they had, and they head over to the ship, and as they try to leave, mine's kind of buzzing a little bit. Mai stares out in the jungle one final time, and then she boards the ship with Sol. And meanwhile, Kamir, well, the funny thing is that the recap that I'm kind of reading off doesn't refer to him as Kamir anymore. Like, they're calling him the Stranger. So I guess we can call him that now, but I'm still just going to call him Kamir since it's just easy that way. But he retrieves his helmet and cloak, and he goes over to Osha, who is now dressed up as May, and he said that he wraps his cloak around Osha and starts tending to her, and that's how the episode ends, which, yeah, it's... So to recap, Kamir revealed himself to be the Sith Lord, killed all these Jedi. It's clear that that he knows all the secrets that Sol is trying to hide. May and Osha got into a fight, and now Osha is with Kamir, who's almost certainly going to spill the beans on some of the secrets that Sol is trying to reveal. And May is trying to figure it out by disguising herself as Osha with Sol. So Pretty short, but it's a very big action-packed episode and quite a bit of a bloodbath. Yeah. So Riz, I just spoke for almost 15 minutes. You want to give some of your thoughts here?
Yeah, so I'm watching this episode, Nate, when it literally airs on Disney Plus, and I'm just looking at it like, hold up. Are we really going Jar Jar Martin here with the Red Wedding and Star Wars now? Because holy crap, that's a lot of people dying.
Mm-hmm.
And, I expected there to be some, people dying at some point, given the tone of the series, but literally every character we've established minus like 3, four if you count the Stranger. But that's pretty insane to me that happened. And I honestly I'm not believing Zeki is dead just because Zeki was best girl and I don't want her to be dead.
What
But
about Yord? Because I forgot to mention that Yord got killed too.
yeah, Yor died, and at that point I was so desensitized to all their murders. I was like, okay, fine. It makes sense for taking Yord as well. Why the hell not, right? Like,
Yeah.
what's one more dead Jedi at this point?
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, I think I want to give more props to Zeki, not only for being best girl, but for also just being a phenomenal fighter and force user at such a young age. I mean, she's still a Padawan. And the more I think about her capabilities to go head to head against the Stranger, I kind of think that she was probably either super good at the Force, like extremely talented, or she was inches away from going through her own trial and becoming a full Jedi Knight. Because she definitely did not fight like a Padawan. She held her own, and I think part of that we can attribute back to Soul, because I think Soul did a pretty good job training her in the beginning in her formative years and helping her learn how to, be a Jedi. But man, that was just a really awesome fight. I don't think I've seen a fight that good in quite some time in Star Wars.
Yeah, for sure.
Um,
This is like, and granted, like with Ahsoka, like the fight scenes were great there, but there wasn't enough, like scenes of like Ahsoka fighting someone who also had a lightsaber. But like here with like a Jedi versus Sith lightsaber fight, this is pretty great stuff. It's definitely a lot better than some of the fights that we got in Obi-Wan Kenobi, which I'll defend that show, but the action in that show definitely is not its strong suit.
yeah,
So
definitely. Yeah, so I thought that was the best part of the episode was the entire uh, fight scene with Zeki and the Stranger. Um, I'll be honest though, the reveal, while I predicted it, the one thing I didn't quite predict, but looking back at Disney, I probably should have, and that was when we see Kamir after he, goes from being hung upside down to being the Sith Lord with the mask and all that. My dude got buff. Where did he get them guns from, dude? I just have to know. Because he didn't have that before. He was a little scrawny little kid, and then all of a sudden he has like these big guns.
yeah, it's kind of weird, especially seeing this actor kind of ripped like that. Because here's the thing: before he was on the Acolyte, the guy Manny, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce his last name because it's kind of complicated. But he had a main role on a show that like my mom introduced it to me, and then my wife and I watched it, and we really fell in love with it. Called The Good Place. It has Kristen Bell in it, among other things. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, in that show, he's like a comic relief character who's kind of a scrawny dude, and he's kind of a dumbass. Like I'm talking like Patrick from SpongeBob level idiot. So to see him go from being a character like that to like this ripped and genuinely intimidating Sith Lord, like, and it works. That was pretty insane, honestly.
Yeah, I would love to know how that happened because it doesn't make sense to me how he's that ripped all of a sudden. Um, and I mean, the reason I say this is kind of something I should have expected given Disney is I didn't expect Kylo Ren to be that ripped when he took his shirt off in whatever movie that was in the sequel trilogy. I think it was in the third one.
I mean, it's probably just that he was well hidden because, like, we never saw Kamir without his shirt on before he revealed himself as the Sith. So it was probably just some very deceptive ways that he tried to like hide just how intimidating he could be.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that's part of it. But I have more fun saying that these guys had guns hidden somewhere, and I'd love to know where to find it because what the heck?
Yeah, for sure.
Um, yeah. Other than that, I also am very curious to know more about what the heck is Soul wrapped up in? Because we've gone from Soul being kind of the detective of this mystery to being possibly implicated in more than he cares to admit to.
Yeah. And I get the feeling, especially since he was on the brink of killing the stranger before OSHA kind of stopped him. I get the feeling that Soul is genuinely a good man, but he probably made a really horrible mistake on Brendok for sure
Yeah.
that is just haunting him. So it's it's definitely something intriguing, and I'm really hoping that that twist, with that mystery, really satisfies me. Because if that turns out to be something that's not a huge deal, I'm going to be really disappointed.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely agree with you on that.
But aside from that, that so I'm I'm kind of worried though with Soul, like kind of concerned that he might not be able to survive. Okay, so to kind of go off what I said earlier about how, and this is a complaint that a lot of the toxic fans are saying because toxic fans are going to be toxic fans, but they're whining about how here we're having an encounter with a Sith, despite Kiadi Mundi, who again is a character that has been established as is actually living here in the Acolyte because we saw him in the previous episode. Um, Kiani Mundi specifically says the Sith have been extinct for a millennia, and yet here we are 100 years ago, prior to the Phantom Menace, with the Sith going. I don't think that anything in the series has just yet contradicted that, but it does make me concerned, not for the quality of the show, but more for like the characters that we like. Like, there's got to be something like, so everyone except Soul, who has witnessed this Sith Lord, is dead now. Is Soul going to get killed, or is
I
he?
I don't think Soul will get killed. I think if he dies, I have a lot more questions for the Acolytes head writer team on what are they doing and who is the main character here. Because I
Or
think the story isn't really about the twins as much as about Soul.
yeah, or if he doesn't get killed, is Soul going to try to keep this encounter with the Sith a secret? Because right now, you can still get away with Kiani Mundi saying the Sith have been extinct for a millennia. Because here's the thing: Kiani Mundi isn't on Kofar, and nor is any of these other really big high up Jedi. So you can get away right now, but like there has to be some explanation. Like maybe they don't consider the stranger a Sith, or maybe Soul is going to die, which I hope is not the case. Or who knows? Maybe Soul will try to cover this whole thing up. Like it's
I mean, I kind of want to use this to segue into your point on Kiandi from earlier.
yeah,
Um, so he said in the prequel movies, the Sith haven't been around for a millennia, and you were kind of mentioning that we're gonna have a talk on this later on in the podcast today. And I've been thinking for a while now that it is kind of weird and it doesn't make sense in terms of the grander Star Wars universe history to have these incidents even be happening in the Acolyte without some kind of overarching like cover up by the Jedi Order, because how would nobody know that Khmer, Stranger, whatever you want to call him, happened, and all these things happen? He's definitely a Sith. I mean, there's no two ways about it. Homeboy's a Sith. So that leads me to think that they'll never get back to Coruscant, and the rest of this series will take place away from everything, and Soul might survive at the end, having ended the life of the Stranger somehow, and he'll cover up everything to continue living the lie that he's been living so far, assuming he is living a lie to begin with, because we don't really know. But assuming he's implicated, I think he's going to try and cover it up, because he's been covering it up for already like 17 years right now.
And the other option, the more I think about it, is that maybe the whole thing that the Stranger is trying to do, so we probably already know that even with what he's doing with Osha, who he thinks is May, he's probably looking for a new acolyte at this point. Like he's more or less kind of just said, the ship has sailed with May. We gotta, I'm gonna try to find a new acolyte. So maybe it's possible that like near the end of the show, he'll get his new acolyte, and who knows? I mean, it could be like, planting the seeds, like maybe not necessarily the guy who will eventually become Plagueis, unless it is, but like somebody who might lead to the eventual rise to where like maybe someone who trained Plagueis, and then Plagueis trains Palpatine, and so on and so forth. But maybe what could end up happening is that Khmer will find a new acolyte and have that person become his apprentice. Soul will end up defeating the Stranger, and then he'll be dead. But in the end, the Stranger's mission is ultimately accomplished because he's planted the seeds for the Sith to eventually rise to power, even if it is going to be like 100 years from now. But that still meshes with the idea that the Sith have been supposedly extinct for a millennia, because nobody knew about that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the lineage, according to legends, from what I understand it, is Plagueis' master is Darth Tenebrous.
Yeah.
And so this could be Darth Tenebrous for all we know, that we're dealing with right now. I don't know what Tenebrous' race is or anything, but
I don't think Tenebrous was a human, which Khmer really is.
Yeah, I'm checking right now to see what he is. But yeah, in either case, I think you're right that this is going to lead into the grand plan of the Sith to eventually take over the universe through political and espionage tactics. Because I don't think they could have beaten the Jedi 1,000 years ago with just brute force. I think they were just not able to do it. So that's why they moved to the grand plan.
Yeah, for sure. But to kind of dive in, so that's mostly the big stuff that we can kind of talk about, because it's mostly just kind of speculation. But to kind of talk about like the bulk of this episode, this is probably I'm kind of conflicted over whether I want to call this my favorite episode or the second episode that kind of goes more into the depth of Osha and May's characters. But I'm kind of half tempted to say that this is the better one, just because it kind of sets up a bit more, like there's a lot more intriguing stuff happening here. Like after all this build up, it finally feels like stuff is happening. The fight scenes are cool. I was genuinely kind of upset when I saw Jeki die, which, yeah, that was like, and it was particularly bad because I didn't see that coming. Like when Kanan died in Rebels, and I'm not saying that Kanan's death was not a genuinely traumatizing moment, because it was, but I kind of saw Kanan's death coming a little bit, especially with all the talk especially with all the moments he was sharing with Hera before his death. Here it just comes out of nowhere. And I'm like, no, she's supposed to have a character arc. And you're just going to kill her like that? What?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, part of me wonders if they're going to introduce the concept of Plagueis' power to bring people back from the dead at some point as, like, a disciple or something. But I feel like that's a little too much, especially for something that's only 8 episodes long.
Yeah.
Now, I will say that I have seen rumors floating on the internet that the showrunner for this has already got plans for what she would do in a season 2 if she was greenlit for it. So,
season for Acolyte?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm hoping that Acolyte gets a season 2. I'm kind of worried that Lucasfilm might think twice about it just because of the bad reviews that it's getting on Rotten Tomatoes. But I'm kind of hoping that Disney will just kind of realize that it's very clearly just a review bombing campaign. Because to kind of put it in, and I know that people want to say that could just be a conspiracy theory. Well, here's something that people need to realize. When I last looked at the Rotten Tomatoes page of The Acolyte, it had over 25,000 reviews. For context, the Robert Pattinson Batman, has over 10,000 reviews. Same with Mandalorian Season 1. Like, there's a lot of content that has been out for years that has less than half the reviews that Acolyte does. So,
yeah. And I mean,
anyone who's saying that a lot of those reviews are just bots as part of like a review bombing campaign, I mean, come on, guys. Let's be honest here. Like, come on, guys.
I mean, but also look at I can't think of another case where the critics' tomato meter is like so different from the audience number, because we're sitting at an 83 from the critics and a 14 from the audience. And I mean, the other thing I want to note here is the Rotten Tomato is not the only metric they'll be using to determine the next season.
I know.
They'll also be looking at the viewership consistently every week. So, are the same users tuning in every week to watch it? Have some users stopped after episode 4? Have they continued on? These are all like metrics that Disney and Lucas are going to be looking at when they study what's the best course of action for the brand and the franchise with relations to the Acolyte and that story. But honestly, I think let them cook, because I think the Acolyte has some potential. Now, I'm not going to say the Acolyte's perfect. It's far from perfect. There's a lot of faults with it in terms of like, I think if I were to be honest to give you my critique of it and things that I don't like, I think there's not as much cohesion with things that, we're having to stretch the idea of what is already been established in Star Wars history versus what we're being told right now. Case in point, the fact that they hadn't heard of a Sith in 1,000 years. On one hand, I kind of find it preposterous that for 1,000 years it said I had no idea about the Sith. But on the other hand, I think it's possible that the Sith were there and that the Jedi knew about it and they covered it up. But that discrepancy and that ambiguity is something that I'm not a fan of, because it makes it harder to know what to believe and what to think, Does that make sense?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Now, part of the thing that I might kind of mesh with the idea of like the Jedi covering it up. I can't remember where I read this. It may have been in the High Republic novel that I'm reading currently, but I remember that it specifically said that that the Jedi High Council is not always open for like everything that's happened with like people who are not part of the council. So it's possible that maybe even the Jedi Council were aware that the Sith exist, but with Qui-Gon not being it. So the reason why Keanu Mundi says the Sith have been extinct for a millennia is because Qui-Gon shows up and says, "Hey guys, I encountered this Sith Lord on Tatooine," and then they immediately shut it down. Well, Qui-Gon isn't part of the Council, and if anything, the Jedi Council kind of tends to look down upon Qui-Gon a little bit because of their disagreements. But so I could maybe interpret it as like maybe the Council secretly knew that there were Sith, but then again, that might kind of conflict with a conversation that Mace Windu and Yoda have at the end of the movie, where they seem to be genuinely shocked that Qui
Yeah.
Gon's murderer was a Sith. So,
Well, and
yeah,
that's the problem, right? It's that we have so many things in the prequels working against this from being a thing that could happen. But it doesn't make sense to me, even when the prequels did it. At the time it made sense because we're being given this painting of like a perfect world, no conflict, no darkness, just all happy-go-lucky stuff. But I tend to think that there's not all this happy-go-lucky if you look underneath the belly of the beast, right? Like you're gonna find what you're looking for if you really go looking. So, but my concern is, Yoda is obviously alive right now in this era, and he's probably on the council. He has to be in the council. There's no way. In fact, I think in the Young Jedi cartoon, he is on the council.
yeah,
So if he's on the council now in the Acolyte time frame, and he's on the council in the prequel era, then the only way Yoda could know about this is if somebody covered it up. They covered up this entire thing. And if they did that, then I think there's somebody more powerful than the Jedi on the Council behind the scenes that we haven't met yet. Because how do you cover up something that big?
yeah, it's definitely going to be intriguing to see how they ultimately cover this up. I, which if they end up meshing it with the continuity that we already have, then that's fine. But yeah, the writers definitely have their work cut out for them there.
Yeah, definitely.
But
So,
no, go ahead.
now I was going to say, I think the writers have written themselves into an interesting corner, and I'm curious to see if they can pull themselves out. And I'm also kind of curious to see that if there's any Filoni impact on this, like if Filoni had any involvement, but I don't think he did. Because I don't think he was given that new title until after the Acolyte was already kind of wrapping up.
Yeah, I think that's the case. Which it kind of I mean, it kind of sucks because I kind of wish that Filoni had a bit more involvement in it. Because I mean, Filoni's live action shows have all been great. I mean, I've kind of noticed that, and that's probably how I feel about the Acolyte thus far. Like, it's another one of those shows where Dave Filoni doesn't have as much involvement, and it just kind of, and you can definitely tell because like it's good, but compared to like the stuff that Filoni's given us, it just feels so lackluster. And it's kind of like how I feel about the Kenobi series. And I don't actually no. I know for sure that Filoni didn't have any involvement in Andor because none of Filoni's favorite characters were in that show, to my knowledge. So, and I know people love Andor, but it well, Riz and I don't really have to tell you guys again how we feel about that, at least for the first couple
Yeah.
of episodes. So, but yeah, I mean, and maybe it also just has something to do with like, the fact that Riz and I are just not completely like in the loop of like what's going down with the High Republic. I mean, I'm currently reading Light of the Jedi, which is the very first novel, and I'm really enjoying it. I'm hoping to get a review of that done very soon. But I don't know. Maybe this would also make a little bit more sense if we had just read some of the other High Republic novels. But as far as the first like live action Disney Plus show in relation to the High Republic goes, so far it's pretty good. I mean, it's definitely got a lot of intriguing elements to it, and who knows? I mean, we still got two or no, 3 episodes left
Yeah, there's
to
3
see how
left.
the thing goes. So this could end up being a pretty good show at the end because I mean, if you guys watch our Toka Secrets podcast, you'll know that like we've had several Sentai. Well, in Riz's case, there's this one Sentai where he wasn't a huge fan of it early on, but the ending came and just boom, completely changed the perspective of it.
Yeah.
So so that
And I
can
mean,
happen.
that's my thing about anything I watch is, okay, I know that it's common for people that are YouTubers and content creators to say, hey, if you don't like the first 4 episodes, then you can stop. You're probably not going to like it. But there have been several times, anime, toku, TV shows in general, where I was kind of lukewarm or about the first 4 episodes, but then as you really build up the steam, things hit very differently.
Yeah. But I would say to kind of get into overall thoughts with this, despite this kind of creating some issues with continuity, I'm not going to let it ruin it for me. I know that there's a lot of people who have already kind of let it ruin it for them, among other things about this show. But I still really enjoyed it. I'm really intrigued to see where they're going to go from here. And not only that, but I would love to kind of see potentially what this show might have with implications for the greater High Republic story. Um, which, I mean, because I'm now starting to kind of get into the High Republic stuff myself now. For By the way, anybody who does follow like the High Republic stuff, because the High Republic has its own little subreddit, like if anybody who's listening to this is into the stuff, just kind of tell me like, is it okay if I only read the novels or do I have to read the comics? Because I hear that there's like it's a very in-depth sort of thing. So definitely I could definitely use some advice on that. But aside from that, I mean, I would say that this was a very enjoyable episode. It had a lot of great action. And I mean, again, Kamir is a very intimidating type of character. So yeah, I know that it brings up like some issues with the continuity, but at the same time, we don't know what's going to happen in these next 3 episodes, nor do we even know if this is going to continue into a second season. So, yeah, definitely some intriguing stuff, and I'm definitely going to want to watch the next episode when it comes out immediately, which is saying something because I didn't dislike the first 4 episodes, but they weren't as intriguing to me. Now I definitely need to know what's going to happen next. So, yeah, I'm probably going to give this episode a 9.
Yeah, so for me, I was kind of grappling with the question you mentioned earlier on, do I like this episode more than I like the episode that kind of gave more of the background on things in the past, which I think was episode 2 or 3, one of the two. I don't remember which one now, but um, I'm still kind of struggling to give an answer, but I'm leaning towards the episode with the backstory being a bit stronger than this because at least that stuff I can understand and accept continuity and be like, okay, this all makes sense. I'm not really complaining right now. But episode 5, while it's pretty awesome and has some of the best lightsaber effects I've seen in a while, I have too many concerns with the continuity, and I have questions on where we're going with the continuity and what things are we decanonizing to make room for this, if anything at all. Um, and that kind of lowers it a little bit for me from a 9 to like an 8 or 8.5, I think. Just because I have that uncertainty on where we're going. And maybe that opinion will change after next week or by the finale. You know,
Yeah.
I can't really say right now for certain, but I have definitely I want to voice that I have a lot of concerns with the Acolyte. I think it's fun. It's a fun ride, but I need to see where we end up before I can really say what do I think of it. Like when I was watching the Book of Boba Fett, um, I knew like in the first 3 episodes or so, okay, I'm bored. this TV show does nothing for me. It's just something mindless to put on in the background. I'm not really interested in it. I didn't really like it. And then the only parts I liked were the Mando season 2.5 stuff that came in like the latter half of the season, I think. And I think it was like episode 6 or 7. Yeah. So, I mean, that stuff was good, but anything involving Boba Fett directly, I didn't really care for. And I'm not saying that I'm the same way right now, but at least in that case, I knew I didn't like it. In this case, I don't know what I like and what I don't like because so many things are left wide open for me, but I'm still going to hold on to an 8.5, I think, on this episode. And that's subject to go up and down depending on how things end up. Because unlike Book of Boba Fett, there's a lot more at stake here with continuity.
Yeah, definitely. Do you want to add anything before we wrap up?
I think I said a lot.
Okay. Yeah, but yeah, it's that. I think the best way to kind of sum it up is that the Acolyte has definitely put itself in an interesting position. I'm not going to take any side on like what'll end up happening or what'll end up not. But yeah, I mean, hopefully these next 3 episodes will definitely put more into context, and hopefully we'll get a season 2 if it ends up being good. But we'll just have to wait and see. But with that being said, this was our little review of episode 5 of The Acolyte. We'll be reviewing episode 6 as soon as we can. We might, we do have some issues, from behind the scenes, just with our personal lives that might have prevent us from doing a review immediately. But we'll try to get that out for you guys as quick as we can. And our upcoming schedule for the podcast, unrelated to The Acolyte, remains unchanged. We're going to be reviewing the book Brotherhood very soon to kind of, begin our little Clone Wars extravaganza stuff to probably close out the year, honestly. Like, we'll do Brotherhood, then we'll do the 2003 Genndy Tartakovsky series. Sorry again, Riz. And then we'll do the 2008 Dave Filoni series, as well as the novel Dark Disciple, all leading up to Revenge of the Sith. So that schedule has remained unchanged, and we'll get that stuff out for you pretty quickly. Plus, I just remember now we also have to do Bad Batch Season 3 as part of that little bit, which I'm looking forward to that. But we'll talk about that when we get to it. But with that said, we hope you guys are enjoying The Acolyte. If you have any thoughts or, anything you want to add to the discussion, you can actually give us feedback on animesecrets.org, and we'll shine a light on it in the next podcast. Or if you're watching this on YouTube, you can leave a comment down below with any comments you might want to give, and we'll definitely shine a light on that. But with all that said, we'll see you guys next time when we review episode 6 of The Acolyte. But until then, bye for now, and may the Force be with you. If you enjoy us here on the Jedi Squadron, then please consider checking out our other content, including the Anime Declassified podcast and the Toku Secrets podcast, which you can find on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, or on our website, animesecrets.org. And if you have anything that you would like for us to review that hasn't already been covered here on the Squadron, feel free to leave any commentary, whether it be in the YouTube comments down below or by reaching out to us personally on our website. Also, please follow us on our social media pages, Anime Secrets, on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram to keep up with our content as we post it. If you're listening to us on Spotify or iTunes, we thank you so much and ask you to please leave us a rating out of 5 stars. If you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed, like the video, and leave any comments down below that you may give in your commentary or stuff you want us to review, and so on and so forth, and we will give your commentary a shout out on the Squadron, as we absolutely love to give our fans the shout outs that they deserve. With all that said, we thank you so much for listening to us here on the Jedi Squadron podcast, and we will see you next time for our next adventure through the amazing world of Star Wars. But until that time, the Squadron is preparing to enter hyperspace once again, so you all stay safe, we love you, and may the Force be with you.